Can you hear
Let
me now? Sorry about that. Thanks for letting me know, though. Can you hear me? Yes?
yes.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. Thank you. All right. So we were just talking about the idea that the world has all of this, me being the center of attention, where I'm pulled and torn about, fixing what's negative and loving what's positive. But the only real answer is that I'm asleep in bed, dreaming this entire dream. And the goal is to come to this little point here where I awaken from the dream. And that's our ultimate goal, where my body would still be present physically, perhaps, but I'm not affected by anything in the world. And let me just show you from the perspective of this. Right now we are being called to all the grievances and the upsets and the irritations that evolve around my body, which none of the grievances would affect me if I wasn't aligned with my body. And as we begin to ask for help, which is to align with the truth of who we are, and we were just talking about the culmination of choosing over and over and over, that we will eventually come to a place where I might still be seen in the body. Everyone would see me, but I'm operating totally from the light instead of anything that has to do with my identification with my body. So that's our ultimate goal. And the quote that I began with was, many are called, but few choose, excuse me, many are called, but few are chosen. And that's a quote from the Bible, of which it is very much aligned with specialness, and only certain people, special people, will be chosen to move on. And the Course kind of twists that around a little bit and says all are called, but few choose to listen. So it is those that will begin to listen to the awareness of, I want to know who I am, that will be the ones that will be chosen, not because they're special, but because they are doing what is being asked with the Course. All right, so God's will, if God's will for you is complete peace and joy, unless you experience only this, you must be refusing to acknowledge his will. Dang, what, huh? And what this really means is, if you're experiencing anything, lack of peace in any way, shape, or form, it's because you are aligning with your will and not God's will, period. And that's, kind of a hard thing. Let me get this little chart. A hard thing to digest, because if I'm playing in this arena, I'm trying to control, I'm trying to fix, I'm trying to change. I'm not over here. I'm not aligned with God's will. And if I'm not experiencing peace and joy, it's because I'm sitting over here. And God's waiting for me over here all the time. There's no interruption in our ability to connect with him. But if I choose to focus on this, I'm not focusing on this. And we have to, first of all, become aware of how frequently I'm playing in this arena, and how I want to fix it. I want to change, and I want to tell that person off, or whatever it may be, instead of, okay, Holy Spirit, I'm lacking peace. I want to find out what your answer is. And that's our ultimate goal. All right, so I'll read that again. If God's will for you is complete peace and joy, unless you experience only this, you must be refusing to acknowledge his will. His will does not vacillate, being changeless forever, which I think is one of the, attributes of God, is that it is changeless. And again, if you're playing in the arena of change, you're not aligning with his will. When you are not at peace, it can only be because you do not believe you are in him. So I still think I'm lost in the realm of separation, and there's no way I can connect with God. Although, again, he's waiting here for you all the time. And you're not willing to give this up to be introduced, or excuse me, you're not willing to give this up to invite this to come along. And again, I don't have to figure this out. That's, it becomes, if you start to really grasp that, it becomes so simple, because I don't even have to figure anything out. I don't have to be God anymore like I do over here. It's, I don't know, this ain't working, baby. Help. All right. And he says, you cannot exempt yourself from his laws, although you can disobey them. So the laws are the laws are the laws. The truth is the truth. And if you choose to not align with that, this word is being used, you're disobeying the choice for connecting with that love.
So would you say that the first step in heading toward the right side of the chart is to be able to go up to the red dot?
Well, I would say even the first thing is to become aware there's a red dot. Okay.
So you know that, and so I mean, I feel it happening in my life where the more often I ask for help, the more often I get it. And
Duh.
And I have to
Right.
just like let the rest of it go. You know, say, well,
Yes.
I don't know. And sometimes it surprises me how long it takes for me to get to that spot.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Not only that, but it's like in my experience, it's like I can think I'm asking, but then there comes a point where it's like, that's it. There's no strings attached to me figuring it out in any way, shape, or form. And it's so manipulative of the ego of ways that it conjures up, yeah, I let it go, I let it go, I let it go. And then you go, wow, now I know I let it go this time. Very different. And yet, I would say in order to get to the point where we can fully let it go, we probably have to go through each of those steps, at least initially, to get to the point where I'm done. There's nothing here. There's no air in the balloon any longer to run the show.
I guess you just you're more aware that the real world is what you're playing in instead of how everybody's manipulating everything and trying to do that. You just get that new awareness of like the miracle mindedness, I guess, of like this is what's going to happen. So then that's us putting the coins in
the right bank account.
On the
Correct.
Right side.
Yep.
And then that's is building up over
up. Yes.
Uncollapsed time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the collapsed time is
right.
the time, then the uncollapsed.
Well, if that's the result you want, yes.
Working at the time zone.
Right.
Go, oh,
yep.
Some more time.
And to keep remembering when I'm up here, by really choosing, I'm not down here. And this time will continue to tick away while I'm here. And when I come back, it's going to be collapsed. And the more time we can spend there, the better, because this time is the time I have to be God. I have to control.
Well, that's the time that we're having all this discussion and about how to do it, what we're going to do next. And we're having there's all that discussion about, is this right? Is this wrong? Mm-hmm. And so then that's the part that, I often, if I'm sitting in that, I go, dang, I could have collapse time.
There you go. Instead of the V8, right? Collapse time.
Collapse this mess, right? But then I've put a name to it and I've called it something, and it's not, God really operating me. I think it is because I'm giving it up. Or I don't want something, and I think that because I don't want it, that it's going to go away and leave me alone, but it doesn't.
And in a way, instead of not wanting it, which actually is like the quote in the Bible, resist not evil. If I don't want it, I'm resisting it. I'm literally making it more real. It's more about sitting in it until it passes through me, where it no longer has a residency within me. Yeah. And that's not easy to do all the time. Right.
It's not such a bad place to be as it used to be. Like,
right. And I agree.
Look what I did again. Oh my gosh. And now it's not such a bad place to be, to wait.
Right.
Because there's no, well, first of all, I guess you understand there's no help on the other side. So, nothing that you're going to argue about or be upset about is going to work out in anybody's favor. You have to let all that upset go. So that's been, I guess that's a stage, we get to.
We go through many, many, many stages before we get to the top of this ladder. Yeah. Right, the stagecoach, waiting for the stagecoach. Okay, so the next quote is, God does not change his mind about you. When anything threatens your peace of mind, ask yourself, has God changed his mind about me? And the answer is always no, because his will, his thought of you is You are the Holy Son of God. There is no separation. And that's big. You cannot exempt yourself from his laws again. Well, that's the wrong one. Then accept his decision, for it is indeed changeless, and refuse to change your mind about yourself. So basically what that means is I recognize I'm over here. It's not giving me anything that I want. I'm not at peace. And this is not about, fixing the world. It's about, do I want peace? Do I want forgiveness more than anything else? And then when I slip over here, then that's when the shift happens. All right, so one more quote and then we'll move on to the section. And this one, which I think is quite beautiful, says, "Oh, my brothers, if you only knew the peace that will envelop you and hold you safe and pure and lovely in the mind of God, you could but rush to meet him where his altar is." So when we want that only, that will be given to us. And in the meantime, we're going to be fighting all the way down the road. Okay, so a week or so ago, we were working on the section called a workbook lesson, Heaven is the Decision I Must Make, and we finished that. But I thought we would work on a section that we refer to fairly frequently, but it's been a very long time since we addressed. And this is chapter 30, and it's called The New Beginning, and it's on text 625, if anybody wants to go there. And it's really kind of a sweet section because it's really Jesus telling us, I know you're struggling. I know this is not easy. I know you're going to start out with the attempt and the hope to get this going like I'm asking you to do, and you're going to fall off the wagon, and you're going to fall off the wagon, and you're going to fall off the wagon, and you're going to fall off the wagon. And it's no different than, people that, go into a 12-step program. Once in a while, you'll get a person that will get it the first try and they're done. But most people, it's a struggle. Whether it's you're on a diet, you're giving up smoking, or if you're giving up drugs or giving up shopping, or whatever it happens to be, it's a process that we keep coming back to and coming back to and coming back to. And the same thing is, going to be explained in this particular area. And I know I've said this before, but the course is called a course. And everything we've ever learned has been a course of learning where you start with where you are and you continue to grow into that process until you finally accomplish what that particular course is about, or not. A lot of times we sign up for a course, but we halfway through, we go, yeah, too much work. I don't want to have anything to do with this. And the question actually becomes, do I want this more than I want anything else? And will I continue to pick myself up and try again if I falter? And again, Jesus, I just marvel at the fact that he so consistently throughout the course explains to us where we are on this journey. And he knows we're not going to get it the first time or the second time. And I think if we looked from the perspective of course, if this has been going on since the Big Bang, it's going to take some reinforcement before I will fully embrace and connect to this new way of thinking and being. And I've often thought about the idea, if you've broken your arm and you no longer can use that arm to write with, and you are right-handed and you broke your right hand, to learn how to write with your left hand is extremely excruciatingly painful, and you're probably irritated and upset on top of it. And that's one thing that's being undone. This is literally undoing everything that we ever thought about, everything that concept we've ever held on to is being undone and being asked to be brought to the altar for a healing that is beyond, and again, beyond anything of the ticks of time. It's way up here. And I think I can figure out how to do that, and we can't. So anyways, the chapter is 30, The New Beginning, and the introduction. The new beginning now becomes the focus of the curriculum. The goal is clear. but now you need specific methods for attaining it. The speed by which it can be reached depends on this one thing alone: your willingness to practice every step. Each one will help a little every time it is attempted, and together will these steps lead you from dreams of judgment to forgiving dreams and out of pain and fear. They are not new to you, but they are more ideas than rules of thought to you as yet. So now we need to practice them a while until they are the rules by which you live. We seek to make them habits now, so you will have them ready for whatever need. And I remember, I don't know if you guys remember Ted Henry, that used to be the news guy. He was actually on a very strong spiritual journey, and he said, "Yeah, you got to be all prayed up, so when the shit hits the fan, you'll be ready." And that's kind of what this is talking about. And I don't know if he said shit. That was Marianne's. So I won't put him into that one. All right. So the new. No, I'm sure he did. Yeah, I know Ted well enough that he did. All right. A new beginning now becomes the focus of the curriculum. So it's like a new beginning, starting over every moment to bring yourself back to, what do I want? Do I want to stay in the insanity of the illusion, or do I want to choose differently? And again, the course is simple in the respect there's only two choices. It's not simple in the respect that we have so many things that call our name. They're everywhere. And again, whether they're positive or negative, doesn't matter. They call our names. And the answer from the Holy Spirit is nothing happened. The ego is something happened, and let me show you the ways. There's so many ways. And the question becomes, am I willing to come to a place where I open my hands to nothing happen instead of fix, change, manipulate, make different, try to convince somebody that you know better than them, or all the bazillions of ways that we get pulled into the illusion.
Where this is the study where the process and the practice are one thing. So it's like as you start the process, the practice kicks in, and then it goes back and forth. So it builds on itself. Exactly.
And it takes, in my experience, again, quite a while before you really understand what he's talking about. And that's a real challenge as well. And though we begin to start to understand it on an intellectual level, which is a good start, until I begin to apply it to my life on a daily basis, moment to moment, it's just nice words that I've just learned. So again, I can't do the process until I understand what the process is, but knowing the process is not knowing the experience that I'm being called to do.
Right, and I guess we all have our own things that seem much harder to think about, and yet I guess because he backs himself up so well throughout, that's what we head toward, whether we want to or not. I think the lesson I read was there is no death, and I thought, okay, I've read this a few times now, but there is no death, and come on, give me a break, Jesus. What are you talking about? There is no death.
Well, over here, no death. Over here, big death, lots of death.
Yeah. All those bodies and mortuaries and the whole Jewish cemetery where I live, it's just it's crazy. Yep. So I read that and I said, okay, I gotta know, help me. And then my grandmother was in my dream. She's been dead for a long time. She said, I'm here, honey.
There you go. There you go. And once again, we live in a world where death is everywhere. Okay. And Jesus says, eternity, there is no death. And so how can Marianne figure out what eternity is when I'm sitting in the realm of the dualistic place? It won't fit.
What death is the forgetfulness of who we really are.
Exactly.
That's really what death is.
Exactly.
Nothing to do
with the body. Yes. It's literally the belief in the opposite of what truth is, and truth is eternal. And this is the opposite. So it begins, it's one of its foundational bricks is death. We killed off God to exist in duality. And so it's the foundational brick. It runs throughout the entire weaving of this storyline. And so Jesus comes along and says, no death, come on, get on board here. It's like, oh, what?
It never gets to know
Yes.
seriously, let's,
Yes.
wait a minute, hold the phone, what does that mean?
Yeah.
I think that's probably the cornerstone
It is very much.
How the course
Yeah.
is, either, you get on board with it or you go, this is crazy.
Yep. And understandably why people would come to that decision.
And
Right.
you never say that to anyone, that's your belief system or what you were taught, but
Yeah.
you would never say that anywhere.
Yep.
Least of all in a place like where the body's being shown.
Oh, no, and that would not be very loving, but it's in your mind that's shifting and changing and having a deeper understanding. All right, so the goal is clear, and I'm just going to stop there because I can remember so clearly when I first started studying the course, being in a class, and this section was being read, and I could see people in the group, conjuring up, okay, what's my goal? Is it that new car? Is it that new woman in my life? Or is it this special thing in the world? And it's like, no, that's not what he's talking about at all. So the goal is simply peace and forgiveness. So when we come to the point where that is really what I want above all those other things, and that doesn't mean you don't still want some of those other things, because there's a real good chance you probably will, but it is at that point where the inkling, I guess you could say, of the idea of, I really want that higher goal beyond all of this. And that's starting to call me louder than some of the things in the world do. So the goal is clear, but now you need specific methods for attaining it. Because again, we've been brain dead in the cycle of the separated state. That's all we've known. There was no other choice. And again, Ken, I know I've shared this many times, Ken often said, the biggest value of this course is to recognize there is a choice maker and there is another choice. Even if I'm not ready to make that other choice, the fact that I'm aware this is sitting here when I'm ready to choose for it is really what the course is offering us. Because over here, there is absolute no choice. And I don't know where my dot went, but I'm either over here as the character called Mary Ann, or I rise above the battleground, and that becomes the choice. Now, if I'm rising above the battleground, I'm not the character. I can observe the character, but I am no longer the character. And the goal is to be up here as frequently as possible, because up here, I'm observing the insanity. And when I'm down here, I am the insanity. So it's of great value to be up here as frequently as possible. All right, the speed by which you can reach depends on this one thing alone, your willingness to practice every step. And I'm sure, again, from my experience, God, where are you already? I've been doing all this stuff. Then where are you, and why haven't you fixed my world yet? And what this is saying, first of all, one of the challenges we have is we don't even know what needs to be fixed, because I think my world needs to be fixed. And as Rose said before, this is about my mind needs to be fixed. It's not about the world. And yeah, if the world comes along and looks better, that's fine. I'll take it. But that's not the goal. The goal is my mind aligning with truth, where when I'm coming from that place of truth, I am coming from the emptiness of God is leading the way, instead of me having an interpretation of what that should look like. All right. So, how adamant am I at practicing the steps that are being laid out by Jesus? Each one will help a little every time it is attempted. And I'm very well aware as well, you know, we can be chugging along with the course thinking you're doing okay, and then you know, whammy hits you, and you immediately start to feel like, oh man, this isn't working. This course is stupid. Why should I bother to do this? And that is just your ego talking. And this course keeps promising us every time you make that step from here to here, something is changing, something is healing, even if this may start to look uglier. And there's actually lines that say some of the times you're doing the very best, your ego will tell you you're doing the worst. And that as you keep choosing, the ego can become very vicious, if not malicious, because we made a contract with the ego that we would never, ever, ever step away from this choice. And we're now stepping away from that choice. And so the investment in this choice says, oh, no, 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 you belong over here. Get back here where you belong. And something major will happen in your life where you kind of dive head forward into the insanity of the ego again. And just to know, again, as this will be speaking of the steps of coming back and coming back and coming back and coming back are normal, are to be expected. Don't get frustrated when it happens because it's just part of the game. And I give the example of playing tennis. When you start, you hold the racket, and once in a while the ball hits it. Then eventually you start hitting well here. They start hitting them over here, and then they go back to here, and you forgot how to do this one. So this is no different. Or learning how to walk, where you take 2 steps and fall on your face, and then you sit and pout and bleed, and then you eventually pick yourself up and start again.
Feels like you just pick your poison. It's none of it's any good. So you might as well go with what gives you a less feelings of aggravation to begin with, and then go from there. I guess it's a personal thing. Otherwise, you're like made to believe that you need to do things a certain way for certain people at certain times, and you're not allowed to have your own free understanding of what, if you're in pain or what you are.
Yep. And the facts are, we're steeped pretty deep in the ego. It's just the facts, man, right now. And as we're stepping out of that, we're growing into the awareness of what we really are. And we read last week, I believe it was, I don't know if I can find it in a hurry, something to the effect that as we are aligned with the belief in the ego, choosing for what we really are feels like a choice. Well, it's who we are. It shouldn't have to be a choice, but because we've chosen for the ego for so long and have accepted that as our reality, now it appears I have to choose for what I really am, which is crazy because I am what I am. I'm like Popeye, but I don't believe that that's what I am. So that takes precedent over it. All right. And together, will these steps lead you from dreams of judgment to forgiving dreams and out of pain and fear? And slowly, as we relinquish our judgments, all of our judgments, I was just thinking on the way over here, that mind is, our brain is just puking out judgments 24 hours a day, whether they're directed at me, my body, my physical attributes, or at something or someone else, or the weather, whatever it may be. It's constantly judging and attacking the world. And this is saying you don't know anything. And how do I drop that in one easy swipe? And the answer is I usually don't. All right, so again, together with will these steps lead you from dreams of judgment to forgiving dreams and out of pain and fear? And when our motivation becomes more in line with, I'm tired of the pain and fear I'm experiencing, and Jesus keeps promising us, when you choose with him, a total different experience will arise. And when I become so intolerant of the pain that I'm experiencing, my willingness to want this more than anything else will begin to bubble to the surface. because I don't want it anymore. I don't care if I'm right or wrong. I don't care what the answer is anymore. I want to know that peace and forgiveness, and that begins to override everything else. And having said that, when we first start out, that's just not where we are. I think I can manipulate the world a few more, give it a couple more whirls before I'm ready for that. And that's part of the process of coming to just wanting what this course offers. And I know I used to get rather frustrated with the idea of thinking that I understood the course intellectually, and that meant I should be there without going through the process of choosing that along the way every moment of the day to take me to a place where I was completely aligned with that.
It seems like how
Hmm.
study, the idea of study comes up in your awareness. How initially when you read anything or look at anything, you think you know it. And then the idea of studying it, you see other people say other things about it, and you haven't really studied it. So that's interesting how it first appears,
Mhm.
and then to know it is to live it.
Yep.
And to live it, and when you live it, then you know it better.
Right. And there's that little phrase that says, to know that you know that you know that you know. That's a lot of no's to get to the point where you really, really know. They are not new to you, these steps, but they are more ideas than rules of thought to you as yet. In other words, we haven't honed these concepts to a point where we're making them rules instead of just ideas. And we know the course doesn't have a lot of rules. So when he uses rules, we got to pay attention. So now we need to practice them a while until they are the rules by which you live. So this will learning what they mean, why they mean what they mean, and then beginning to apply them unequivocally throughout the day, no matter what's occurring, which will take us to that understanding. And we read last week of the protocol. You know, we learn what the rule is, and then we begin to apply it in all circumstances in our life. And again, you know, he talks about, you know, our minds wander, and we're not very diligent in our choice. And of course, we couldn't be because we're so aligned with our ego. But as we hone in into this more and more, and our understanding of the value of it continues to grow, we will want this more than anything else. And then the results of wanting it more is, as Andrea said a few minutes ago, you know, I'm remembering to ask more frequently. Well, yeah, I'm going to get better results as I ask more and more frequently.
Interesting too, that this is the second to the last.
Oh, yes, 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 yes.
We're in the whole book, so like it's kind of like if you're saying.
Yeah.
Start back over again.
Yes, you're right. You're right. Good point. We seek to make them habits now, so you will have them ready for whatever need. So as we begin to understand the protocol, we begin to understand the rules, then we'll have them ready when the next dump of chaos lands on your front porch. And we'll be more able to use them because they're heightened in your awareness of this is, if I want the result of peace in my mind more than anything else, I'm willing to go through the steps that Jesus has offered me.
Peace you can't say. I mean, you know, I'm looking forward to things a certain way, but I can't say, oh no, this happened. I wonder what's going to happen next. Like it's like this, like a vice of fear around life and how things are going to happen. And now what? What's next? And I feel, if anything, that has relieved me of that particular emotional gritting of my teeth. Like, oh shit, okay, Jesus will do that one, but that's enough. I have enough.
And certainly in my experience, again, what you're sharing as well, in the beginning stages of the practice of the course, it is like you're grinding your teeth because there's a part of you that thinks you want what the course has to offer so much, and yet we're not at a place to understand clearly what the Course is saying. So we're kind of wavering back and forth, and we don't really want it till we think we want it. So yeah. All right, so understand and remember that judgments, grievances, irritations, upsets, and unfairness are all things that are coming as a result of this choice. So if you find yourself in any of those, and certainly there's many, many more adjectives that we could add to that are running the show. And if you find yourself there, it's a reminder, oh, I'm working out of this plan. Jesus is promising me, peace and joy. And if I'm playing over here, I'm not going to experience that. And so the irritations and upsets that the world provides us are actually our salvation. Because my mind does not, me as Marianne, does not know what's going on up here. But my irritations, that sharpens my awareness of, oh, whoa, got some work here. Something's not working the way I want it to work here. And so my brother or my irritations in my life are literally my gifts that remind me where I'm aligned. Because over here, I would not be, no peace would be disrupted. That's pretty valuable, despite the fact that they're irritating as hell. All right, so rules for decision. Number 1, paragraph 1. Decisions are continuous. You do not always know when you are making them, but with a little practice with the ones you recognize, a set begins to form, which sees you through the rest. It is not wise to let yourself become preoccupied with every step you take. The proper set, adapted consciously each time you wake, will put you well ahead. And if you find resistance strong and dedication weak, you are not ready. Do not fight yourself, but think about the kind of day you want and tell yourself there is a way in which this very day can happen just like that. Then try again to have the day you want. All right, this first line, decisions are continuous. Literally, every moment of the day, we are making decisions. The decision between the ego and the Holy Spirit. Now, when we walked into the Course, we were doing this automatically, making that decision because this was the choice that was put into place. I didn't know that was what was going on, but that was what was going on. So again, the Course comes along and says, you know what? There's another choice over here, kids. You didn't realize that, but you have to be the decision maker that chooses between one or the other. And the way you get to the point where you will choose between one or the other is to become aware that you chose one that's not bringing you what you thought you wanted it to be. Because again, we got to be in control. We got to be God. We got to be on the throne. But we left love and peace and joy behind. So we got what we wanted, but we left behind a whole lot of what we wished we hadn't left behind. So when it says decisions are continuous, when this was put into place, the decision for the ego literally has run the show. Okay, so now we have another choice. And so now I'm at a place where I can decide which one I want. And how do I know which one's being operated? By the results in my life. If I'm not at peace and joy, this is the one that's running the show. And if I like to move on from there, I can make that choice to choose differently. Until that comes about, I'm going to be running ragged over here. And so a lot of the process of the Course is beginning by observing how I react to the world that I live in. Do I want to attack somebody? Am I upset? Am I irritated? Am I anxious? Am I whatever those adjectives are? They're all representing I'm choosing for separation instead of love. And sometimes you won't recognize that until you're in the midst of a crazy argument or a frustration or attack or whatever it may be. And you might judge yourself because that's how you reacted. But what the Course is asking us to do is just simply become aware. Oh, I thought I was this nice, sweet little angelic being. And look at me, and even if it's something like somebody cutting you off the road, which seems like, oh, that would be the natural thing to attack them in your mind, or how dare they do this to me, become aware that wasn't very loving because I wanted to kill one of God's sons. And in oneness, there is no other son, just me and all of us together. And if I want to judge or attack anything about anyone, about any circumstances, I'm living in duality.
Starts with the fear that they're trying to kill you.
Oh, of course. And that I'm this body that could be killed.
Right, so it's more like you don't have another choice, you just have things that are really bugging you.
Mhm.
And then you can choose to let them go. And then go, that's how it works, so you don't really know that there's a choice, because
No
you have your list of, what was that called, your, the things.
grievances or
That
whatever.
really bother you, but your pet peeves.
Yep.
You can list all your pet peeves and laugh about them, but you're serious about it.
Mhm.
And now the pet peeves have to just go, I don't know.
Mhm.
Or say, if I want to be happy, I have to let go of that. And that's like an active part of your mind saying no.
Yep. Yep. And, factored into the understanding of what the Course is trying to share with us is an important concept that I literally want that situation, that brother, that circumstance to take my peace away. Because I can't play the part of an innocent victim without some form of a perpetrator in the world. And on some level, if this is the choice I've made, I desperately need them to play that part, or this can no longer work. We can't both be over here and over here at the same time. So, most of us probably aren't at a place quite yet where we can go, oh, look, grievance, I put that there. Let's see, isn't that delightful? It's not normally going to be experienced that way. It's normally going to be experienced like, and then maybe after you calm down a little bit, you go, oh, wait a minute, what's going on here? Do I want to continue in that direction, or do I want to move on? But we're being asked to observe what's going on without judgment or condemnation. So don't let the ego come in and say, you're a bad girl because you're attacking somebody. Observe good little egos on planet Earth, if they think they've been attacked, are going to attack back. It's a no-brainer. And what would you expect by a thought system in opposition to what real love is? And that's a tricky one, because most of us have been somewhat brought up in some teaching of some sort where good little people do good things. They don't ever do bad things, which is so absurd, because there's nobody on planet Earth that ever does everything good or right, no matter how pure and wonderful you are.
Some people, that it's good, and others it's bad.
And
So
there you go.
kind of-
Yes, correct, right. And it's all in the perception that you're looking at it. Correct. Yep. All right, but with a little practice with the ones you recognize, a set begins to form, which sees you through the rest. So again, how could I possibly make another choice if I don't even realize that I'm the problem? It would be impossible. Yes.
It's my idea that's getting us.
Yes, because if I've projected into the world all my, I'm going to use the word negative, I don't know if that's the best choice, but all my negativity and all the things I don't want to look at in my mind as a result of choosing for the ego, and I dump it in my brother so I can look like an innocent victim, guess what? My brother is coming from my mind, and he's never going to go away as long as I'm playing in this arena. Because I put him there to do what he said, what he's saying and doing, so that I could play the part of an innocent victim. And the only way this can get remedied is if I step here and come over here where we're really all one. And then there is no separation. There is no division. There is no you against me. That's collapsed. This is gone. Now we're living in a world where truly I'm coming from love, and I see my brother through the lens of love. Over here, I can pretend I'm looking through the lens of love. but no way, because I don't want to see him as love. I can't exist in the dualistic state as long as I choose to see even one brother in anything but love, which can only happen here.
You dump it on him and he dumps it back on you and you both have your eyes closed and then that's the end of it. You don't
Yeah,
have
and
any,
we
there's no
just-
else to go.
And we just recycle the garbage.
There's no
Yeah. Nope.
thing.
Yeah.
You just hold fast to that idea and there's
Exactly.
no, and there's no peace or freedom or anything in it.
Yeah. Yep. And again, until we understand there is no peace or understanding as long as I'm playing that game, we're going to continue to try to manipulate the world to make it a better place for me. And I don't care about the rest of the people. You know, maybe a couple people, I'll bring them over on my side, but for the most part, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's, all the aggregation going on in the world, it somehow grazes past me somehow. Because I understand it's because we keep just looking at the outer and what we're gonna get out of each thing. And so that's been interesting, how you talk about how things fall away after a while.
Yes,
That-
they
that-
do.
That desire, that need to know every piece of news and who's doing what to whom and how that,
Mhm.
and how I'm supposed to take sides and be in the middle of that. That has no bearing on my real life anymore.
Mhm.
I see it's happening, but I don't have, it
Yeah.
doesn't, my concern over it just fell away. It's not, and I don't feel like I'm being unfeeling. I feel like I'm choosing the path that's going to bring peace and freedom to everyone.
Yeah.
And that's not my point. My point is to bring it to myself. And
Yes.
where that goes, then that's the way it goes.
So the proper set, adopted consciously each time you wake, will put you well ahead. So basically what that means is he's inviting you to start your day with, what is my goal? Is my goal peace? Is my goal forgiveness? Is my goal to see everyone through the lens of love? Now, he's not asking us to figure out how to do that. He's asking us to set that as your goal. That's what I want above everything else. And then as this will continue to share with us, you'll see very quickly that very quickly you change your mind about that, because I'm okay in bed and there's nobody irritating me. But the moment some irritant shows up, then, you know, out in the garbage with that, because I got other plans here that I got to tell them how to work this here, because I know how to fix it and I know what's good for you. And he keeps reminding us, oh, no, you don't. You know nothing. And you will never know anything as long as you're aligned with the ego. So again, the proper set, adopted consciously each time you wake, will put you well ahead. And I would also add to that, much like the workbook lessons, where it will give you kind of an assignment every day. And oftentimes you'll read the assignment in the morning and go, oh man, this is so beautiful. And then, you know, it will say, you know, ask for help 3 times an hour or whatever it asks that particular workbook lesson. And you'll think, okay, I'm going to really hold on to this. And then you put your head down in your pillow at night and you think, oh man, I didn't do it one time. And we're being asked to not judge ourselves when we do that. Simply become aware, I guess I'm not as committed to this as much as I thought I would. But if you add guilt to it, then you're aligning with the ego yet one more time. And if you find resistance strong and dedication weak, you are not ready. So basically what this means is if there's an internal fight about letting go of being in charge, you're probably just not quite ready to do this yet. And that's okay. Because again, even if I'm not ready to choose this, I now know that this is an option when I am ready to choose this. And God's not up there with a whip saying, you know, hey, you down there, you're bad. He's just saying it's ready for you when you're waiting, when you're ready, come on down. And until then, you have to go through the contortions that you have to go through until that point in time comes where you're really ready to make that choice. No, you don't have to.
Go back to the
No,
square one, or to the pay $2,000 and go back.
right.
Because it's all in each chapter, in each setting that he's talking about, he brings up the same set
Yep.
of circumstances.
Yes.
That makes it really,
Yep.
how it's kind of more like a song or like something with the refrain that he goes back to. It's a continuous kind of using all
Mhm.
those words to express
Yep.
something in a that way.
Over and over and over, because he knows how unrefined we are in our ability to follow the rules that he's offering us. Do not fight yourself, but in the midst of even that, as he says next, but think about the kind of day you want. Do I want a day of peace and forgiveness? Is that my focal point every day when I wake up in the morning? Because that will be the default that will continue to be reset, that will bring me to the goal that I'm looking for. So, but think about the kind of day you want and tell yourself there is a way in which this very day can happen just like that. And I know people have shared in the group over and over this concept of, now I know what the answer is. And sometimes when you'll hear that voice in your head that says you could choose for the Holy Spirit instead of this attack, and you'll kind of quickly evaluate the scenario and you'll choose the attack. But just look at it. I'm not ready to choose for only love right now. And that's not good or bad. It's just a fact of where I am. And the more we can be in that place without attacking and judging ourselves, the more quickly we will be able to eventually be ready for that choice. But the more I rag on myself, the more I'm digging the hole into the ego, which will take me longer. Then try again to have the day you want. And again, this prototype, or this rules of decision, as this is called, this is a rule. What kind of day do I want? And then halfway through the day, what kind of day do I want? And then a little later, what kind of day do I want? If you fall off the wagon, it's an opportunity to re-choose over and over. But don't take the I fell off the wagon and let that drag you along. Simply choose again, choose again, choose again, choose again. And again, heaven is a decision I must make. And this means to be forgiven, I have to choose for heaven. I have to drop the story of my brother being the bad guy. And oh man, is that hard to drop some days, because they're so legitimately, I'm right to attack my brother for what he has done. And as Jesus said in the Bible, even forgive your brother, he knows not what he does. Well, forgive myself, I know not what I do. I don't know that attacking my brother is keeping me stuck in the dualistic place against in opposition to the love that I am, that God is, and that my brother is. And what do I want? What do I want? What do I want? And we're like little kids that have to be reminded over and over all day long. Yes.
I was just gonna say, it's interesting that the person who's asleep is not aware that they're falling off the wagon and trying to get back on. Person who's trying to wake up
Mhm.
falls off the wagon and then does the double whammy on themselves and kind of makes it worse.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's an interesting, you
Yeah,
know, because you're
yeah.
like, I'm trying, but no,
Right,
now I'm punishing myself.
Yes, yes. But I think again, with
Yeah.
this talking about the steps that we need to take in any type of graduation in a course is, I'm going to make mistakes and I'm going to fall off the wagon. And do I want to accomplish the goal? And that has to become the focal point of, do I want that I will let anything that gets in the way not take my peace away? And I think everybody goes through that self-judgment. And the reason why we go through the self-judgment is because I'm so welled up in judgment and attack. And my experience is, as we keep doing this over and over and over, that judgment and guilt and attack starts to kind of go down. And I don't hate myself as much. It's so refreshing.
It kind of reminds me of when you said a couple of weeks ago, or a few weeks, that when you think of yourself as a killing machine, you just go, yeah, so what's
I'm
the
a
big
killing
deal?
machine. Yeah.
You accept it.
It's like looking at it from I was watching the show and they were talking about how, you're living in a simulation, a video game.
Yep.
And the video game is kill or be killed. So when you're watching characters killing each other, that's the game.
Yes.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, and when you've chosen for the ego, you have chosen the opposite of love and you have chosen kill or be killed. So we're being asked to look at ourselves playing kill or be killed. You know, it's just like kids playing, war games on the floor with their little plastic soldiers. You as a parent know nobody's being killed. There's no blood. There's nothing going on. But those kids, I'm gonna get you. And while they're playing, that's the game that's going to be taking place. But nothing's happened.
And I love what Ken, I love looking at it that way too, because I had a sandbox as a kid.
Sure.
And we played in it all the time, and Ken, said, that's it, you're playing, war games with little figures in the sandbox. And you don't have to get out of the sandbox.
Right.
You just have to stand up.
Right.
Yeah.
And I love that,
Yeah,
just stand
beautiful.
up.
Yep.
Mhm.
Or there's another sort of similar to that. It's at the end of the chess game, all the pieces go back in the box.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter who won or who lost. The game is over. And when we wake up, the game is over. And at the same time, be very aware of how insistent we want to win the battles of the game, which are nothing, but we sure feel like there's something. All right, we're going to take a 10-minute break. And we'll come back and play some more. Okay, so we are going to continue. I guess it's in paragraph 1, paragraph 2. The outlook starts with this. And if you're new, we're in the new beginnings, in chapter 30, text 625. All right, so the outlook starts with this. Today, I will make no decisions by myself. This means that you are choosing not to be the judge of what to do, but it must also mean you will not judge the situations where you will be called upon to make response. For if you judge them, you have set the rules for how you should react to them. And then another answer cannot but produce confusion and uncertainty and fear. All right, so that's a mouthful. All right, so today I will make no decisions by myself. Now, for a mindset that the first choice was to be in charge, which is to decide against God, and that we've continued to reinforce since then, to not be the one in charge is like almost painful for us, to say the least. Even if we know that's what he's asking us, it's still excruciatingly painful because I think I know. My mind, my eyes, my ears, my senses, my emotions, my feelings all know that I know.
That I'm supposed to know.
Well, or that I'm supposed to know. There's that as well. Yes.
The answer.
Yes. And to come to the place of, I don't know. Let him make a decision about this is again, excruciatingly painful for most of us. And yet that's what he's continuing to ask us to do. So today I will make no decisions by myself. This means that you are choosing not to be the judge of what to do. Now, the thing with that is it doesn't mean you sit in the corner and stare at your belly button and never ever do anything or make any progression in your life or whatever. What it means is you don't make any choices in this moment about what you're going to do. So in other words, obviously you're going to go to work. So you're getting ready for work. You say, okay, Holy Spirit, I don't know what this day is supposed to look like. Show me how I can walk with you. Pardon me. All right, so this means that you are choosing not to be the judge of what to do. But it must also mean you will not judge the situations where you will be called upon to make response. Now, this section, so far as we've read, says the goal is clear, and we've discussed the idea that the goal is peace and no judgment. Okay, so that's the judge, or that's the goal. And that means I don't know. I don't know what, I don't know about me. I don't know about my brother. And just think of all the ways your little mind is constantly churning up things that you think you know, ways that you think you know better than your brother, ways that you think it's justified to attack your brother for anything that he or she does. And to be willing to stop the flow of that energy and say, wait, I don't know. I want you to fill the empty space with what you have to share instead of what I think I know. And watch yourself be challenged by doing this because it's so foreign. Now, as we spoke a little bit earlier, as you do this more and more frequently, it will become much more natural. You will trust the process a lot more and you won't fight it as much. But initially, because we're so enmeshed in thinking we know and being in control, it's going to take some practice to get to the point where I freely let it go. And of course, workbook lesson number 5 talks about the idea, and I'm never upset for the reason I think anyways. So how could I possibly know what the problem is or what the solution is?
Feel myself of that
Mhm.
state a lot, where I'm actually in a situation where I'm not completely happy with what's going on. And I have to keep saying, and this helps me, I keep saying, is this, are we there yet? Is this Jesus? Are you, hello? Where are we? How is this going? And not why anymore, but how,
Mhm.
if I'm not completely happy with what Arthur's farting around with or what he's doing, I have to say, is this what I want? Well, I'm on the edge of what I want. So I'm not quite, I'm waffling back and forth in those moments of, okay, I asked for it this morning and now I have to ask for it again.
Correct.
I ask for it in those moments and keep saying, okay, I need your help now and I need it now. And now he's standing on his head in the car.
And I still need it now. Right? Yeah.
That's just how I see
Yes.
it. And that, it feels like work.
It very much feels like work. And again, as I started out the class, it's ridiculous that I have to ask to remember who I am when it is what I am. But because we've chosen for separation, it appears that the choice we made is the solid one and the other one is, nothing. And so now we have to kind of flip that around. Wait a minute, this is not my home. I want to know what my home is.
So that's a relief, but after, well, not a whole day of it, just of knowing then I kept working at it is a good, I guess the collapse time comes later and I'm not as disappointed. I
Right.
guess there's all that going on. Like, it
Yep.
says in the beginning of that, our thoughts are always moving around. We're always having thoughts and making decisions. We don't even know what we're doing.
Right.
But when that occurs now, I feel more, it's just the way it goes.
Yes.
With the
Yep.
body and
Yep.
all that stuff, and ego.
Yeah.
And it's his ego and I guess it's just mine actually in the whole thing, but
Correct.
I'm noticing how he's responding and then so that's,
And I think, you're using an explanation of you're a caretaker over a small child, which is a sneaky little thing because as a responsible person filling that job, you're supposed to be in control. And to relinquish the control in that type of a situation means I have to trust God more than I trust the world and the rules that have been set up here. So it's kind of like you got to take a deep breath and let that one kind of savor a little bit. Yeah.
well, I think too, because practice with children shows you when you get upset and are heavy-handed that it backfires.
Yeah.
So I guess I have that behind me, that I've had enough backfires. So this is how I've been able to, this is how it's evolved in me. And that's an ant. Want me to get him?
Ooh, he's big, sure, go for it. Because go away, little ant. I'm not so little ant. Oh, he's a flying ant. That means he's looking for No, we won't go there now. Okay, so, but it must also mean you will not judge the situations where you will be called upon to make response. Okay, so I wake up in the morning, all I want is peace and forgiveness. And I'm so ready for this. Okay, yeah, I'm ready. And then the first thing that happens is something challenges the heck out of you. And, when it says, you will not judge the situations where you will be called upon to make response. And what is my response? When that hits me, will my response be, I choose for peace and forgiveness, not attack on my brother?
You never know what you're gonna do, really.
Nope.
I think that's the part is that feeling of uncertainty about when something happens. What is this? What's going on here? And then you have to say, I don't know, because I don't know what's going on, and I have to let it go. That's progression in me of letting it
Yes.
go.
Right.
Because initially it's like, what the hell is now, what's this?
Mhm.
But then the sting of that has gone away.
Yes,
a lot.
and I woke up this morning asking for peace and forgiveness. And I think the fairy godmother of forgiveness and peace should tap me on the head, and voila, my day will go like smooth skating on a beautiful ice pond. And instead, wham, here's one below the belt. Yep.
On that note.
Yeah, you had one of those this morning, did you?
And, so I'm coming in a parking lot, parking, this person is parked forward she's parked backwards essentially. And she didn't see me. So she
Ooh.
hit the corner of my car, and I could see her coming, so I tried to drive out of the way,
Right,
but it wasn't gonna work. So then I got out, and I was, well, I had this minor damage, it was already damaged back there.
right.
I already had a claim about that, but, so I said, what do you wanna do? Instead of, you hit me, blah, 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 'cause I didn't know what this was.
Mm-mm,
It was unpleasant, I had to let go of the feeling of unpleasant, so
exactly.
work on it in different layers, but, so she said, well, I can just pay for it, I'm sorry. I said, cause you were coming this way down a this way lane, and, so she said, well, if you can get an estimate, let me know, blah, blah, blah. But then I'm walking toward, so, okay, so I walked toward the store, I took a picture of his names, and, this guy says, you better get to the police station. You know where
Right.
people are.
Yeah, like.
I know. Yeah, so then I had to think about that, because I hadn't thought about it that way.
Right,
I think
yep.
it's the easiest way to do something. And then, so then I go in the store, I'm looking for something, I call my nephew, come back out, he doesn't want any of that. Then I think about, I'll go to the police station, just for insurance purposes, so I
Right.
go to East Cleveland. It's not here. That was in Cleveland.
Mm.
It's at the border, and it's in Cleveland, so then I go to another police station. Then I get this guy, he is very patient, but impatient at the same time. You should have had us all thought out before you got here, because I was asking him, well, what do you think?
Right.
And so finally I realized, I'm just not in my right mind anyway. And so I do a little test, I can get some information from higher power that way. Then I just decided, I said, well, in my mind, this is not gonna be clear now. So he says, after I thought, well, this is not gonna be clear now, he says, I tell you what, call me by 4:00.
Mm.
I can withdraw the report
Oh,
if you want me to.
right. Sure.
So then I drive away. I said, I'm just gonna sit under the shade tree.
Let it,
Cool down.
Yeah.
Think about it, let it in.
Sure.
What are you doing? And so then higher power said, well, it's not about what you should do, it's about who you are.
Yeah, well, there's another whammy for
There's
you.
more peace in being who I am. than just
Absolutely.
Following the rules, what the heck, see where it goes, trust the process. And then I had to let go of some more anger, but then
Sure.
let it go. But
Yep.
that's the whole idea, I can't judge what it's for. And then later I figured out, oh, if I had only done this, I wouldn't have even been there.
Right.
And then I probably, that's irrelevant. This is how.
Yeah, absolutely irrelevant. Yes. Don't even go there. Don't go there. Yeah.
Whatever you call it. You safer, I'm perfectly fine.
Right, right.
It was obviously just a weird day. I saw a rabbit getting killed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Wow,
that
wow, wow.
was the first part of the thing.
So did you file the report?
Yes.
Okay.
You have the Holy Spirit with you.
Well, the Holy Spirit said, well,
Whatever.
it's already messed up back there. They'll just fix both planes at once.
Nah,
Okay, yeah.
right,
And if my insurance goes, I just have to wait a little while and I'll just change my plan.
right, right.
But neither accident was my fault.
Right, but I think the beauty of what you just described is in the past, you probably would have had that happen and there would be an immediate reaction and you'd be, flying around and whatever. Where this, it's like you were conscious enough, you were awakened enough to be consciously aware of, wait a minute, is this really where I want to be? And then that space where you could make another choice could come through. Where before it was like it happens and you reacted and we're brain dead. So that's huge. All right. All right, again, but it must also mean you will not judge the situations where you will be called upon to make response. And be very aware, just because you're asking for help doesn't mean your life is going to just smooth out. In fact, it's literally going to give you the opportunities to work on how am I doing?
Yeah, you're not, yeah, you can't, I mean, I think
Mm.
that's the opposite thing that I grew up doing, like something happens and I'm like, oh, it's okay, whatever it is. Oh, it's okay, it's okay.
Yeah, but that's
And
not
so
the
that's-
answer.
That isn't it either. So
Mm-mm.
it's interesting how, so once in a while when I go through something and I get worked up, because I never ever used to get worked up, now I get worked up. And I hear the higher power say, so what?
Yep.
And then I get off
Yes,
with my
right.
stuff.
And such a
So
good
they're bigger
example,
place.
right,
They're bigger
right.
place.
A good example of many of us were taught, oh, you just don't let that bother you. Well, that's not what the Course is saying. The Course is saying, really pay attention. If I'm the slightest bit irritated, it's affecting me. And just going, it is not going to solve the problem. It's not going to bring your mind to healing. That's very important in this process. If you judge them and have set the rules for how you should react to them, and let's see, that doesn't make sense. But it must also mean you will not judge situations where you will be called upon to make response. For if you judge them, you have set the rules for how you should react to them. Okay, so in other words, we have to kind of keep that space open and keep bringing it to openness of, I don't know anything about any of the steps along the journey as we walk. And the more you can keep that space open of, I don't know, the more the real answer can come and replace the dualistic concepts that are constantly churning in your mind. And keep remembering, if my mind is in conflict, I'm not going to make a good decision about anything. Just not going to happen. I have to bring my mind to that stillness, and then the possibility of an answer that is healing will come forth. This leads to fear because it contradicts what you perceive, and so you feel attacked. So what this means basically is, am I in the right paragraph? No, thank you. Somehow it didn't sound right. For if you judge them, you have set the rules for how you should react to them. So again, we think we are opening to the Holy Spirit, but we're really doing it ourselves and then asking the Holy Spirit for help. This has to come before we even begin to make a choice, which again is going to take some practice because we're not used to doing it that way. But if I've already made the choice and then I ask the Holy Spirit, it's never going to turn out the way He's offering it to us because we're already in charge again.
That's the way that's the way I grew up doing things.
Of course. And that's why He said, bring everything to the altar. Everything. Yes.
Make a decision and then say, how would it, how's that? Or not even really interact on that level with
Yes.
a mind of Jesus.
Yes.
With only my own ego mind, not knowing where Jesus's mind is, thinking he still really is up on that cross.
Yep. For if you judge them, you have set the rules for how you should react to them. So again, if I've already placed judgment on my brother, and again, remember, I place the judgment on him, and then I judge the judgment on him. And once I'm there, I'm gone. I've already made a decision that keeps me from making the choice to choose here. And it's, again, the ego is really, really sneaky. It's got all kinds of ways it can manipulate you into thinking you're asking for help when you're really just manipulating the scenario and the situation. And at the same time, I would say all of us are going to do that very frequently for a long time. And think of that as having the dial on the radio when you're trying to get it just perfect so you can get that perfect tune. You're going to go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth until you actually find that center point. So again, don't judge yourself if you're not doing it perfectly. You're not going to do it perfectly first. The very fact that you're attempting to begin to do it differently is huge. And the ego will always say, but you didn't do it perfectly. And that's just the way the ego sneaks in there and gets us once again.
And to deal with the
Yep.
anxiety and the
Yep.
self-recrimination and how, why did you do it that way? Now it's not working out either.
Yep.
So it's
And we
just
want to prove,
use that.
and we want to prove Jesus wrong or God wrong as well. There's a lot of that that's going on in there on a subconscious level as well. All right, so then he says, and then another answer cannot but produce confusion and uncertainty and fear. And what that means is if I've already made the choice, and then I ask God, I didn't really ask God, I decided to make the choice, and then I just kind of wanted him to tell me it was okay. And that's always going to cause confusion because I haven't really gotten out of the way. All right.
Making a judgment based on the Holy Spirit's influence.
Correct. And remember that wonderful line in the Course where Jesus says, it's not that you shouldn't judge, it's that you cannot judge, because in order for you to judge, you would have to absolutely know everything that ever happened or ever will happen. And we are not capable of that. So that is just not gonna cut it. So we really do not know anyone's best interest, including our own. So the more we can get out of the way of thinking that we know anything about anything, even though everything about our feelings, our emotions, our eyes, our ears say unequivocally we know, we don't. And that's a lot to give up as a good little ego.
Gossips.
Yes, he's a lot of stoppers. And, he is fantastic for taking us home. He's not fantastic for support of the ego, which he's not, of course, because he doesn't know it exists. But, as long as I'm aligned with thinking that I am the ego, this is not a very user-friendly experience. Because I want someone to be, I want to point the finger at him, and then I want to get a million people behind me that say, yes, you're justified to attack this person. And Jesus says, yeah, what person? And we go, huh?
Yeah, so you think the freedom lies, not in that other side where you get free of that other person, like they're like sticking to you or whatever.
Yes.
Or that
Yep.
your foot hurts or whatever it is that's bugging you. So that's the biggest, that's the hardest place to be, where you think somehow it's going to get all straightened out when you straighten it out. And when it's not, then you got something else to do.
That's right. And it's always up to me. And that's why I think for me, the value of the repetitive nature of the Course, of constantly reminding us what the ego's up to, what it's about, why it was set up, and the value of letting it go is so important and so valuable because we're so enmeshed in the thought system of the ego. It's everything we think we know, which is nothing, but we don't know that it's nothing. All right, so paragraph 3, this is your major problem now. You still make up your mind and then decide to ask what you should do. And what you hear may not resolve the problem as you saw it first. This leads to fear because it contradicts what you perceive, and so you feel attacked and therefore angry. There are rules, by which this will not happen, but it does occur at first while you are learning how to hear. So again, this paragraph explains the idea of this is a progression of understanding that's going to be built over and over as we move forward. And I often think of it as math. When you learn your numbers, that's a big accomplishment. And then you learn your math, your addition. And at the end of the year, you go, wow, I'm pretty cool. I know most of my, I can do this. And then they review it in the spring or in the fall. And then what do? They whap the subtraction. Oh man, I'm back to square one. I must not have learned anything. But you learned something. This is just another level of understanding of that learning. And eventually you'll spiral all the way up to the top where there is no more learning to be had. But in order to do that, you have to go through each of the steps that take you there. And be aware that the ego is never going to say, Mary Ann, you're doing a great job. It's just not going to do that unless it manipulates it in some other way. All right, so this is your major problem now. You still make up your mind and then decide to ask what you should do. And eventually we will skip that step because we will want the result of being at peace more than we want the problem to continue, which means I'm not as identified with the personal self. Keep remembering this picture of the hero, the dream. What's in the center here? Me. When there's no me, all the rest of this is not of value. It's
Yeah, I saw a movie like that.
Oh, really?
It's Brad Pitt.
Okay.
Spoiler. Semi-spoiler. And he was this washed up guy and so he had this opportunity because somebody's trying to save their team and he said, well, maybe he could. Anybody else?
Right.
They bring him in as the old guy, teach the young guy, but everybody thinks he's there to, vindicate himself and prove he's God.
Right. He's
He never
cool.
was a has-been. It was none of that. None of that.
Right.
And nobody understood it. Even at the end of the movie, only he understood it.
Right. And that's all that matters, really.
And that was awesome.
Yeah.
It was something else. What was it called? F1.
I don't think I ever saw that one.
Formula One.
Yeah, Formula One. Formula One racing.
Okay.
Yeah, so all that other stuff was good too, but.
That was the main, right? Yep. And what you hear may not resolve the problem as you saw it first. And I've often thought, if I ask the wrong question, I might get an answer, but it won't be the answer to the question that I really want solved. And again, that's me putting a barrier in front of the undoing process. And again, the ego is extremely manipulative. And be very aware that when I say that, it makes it sound like the ego is this entity outside of yourself trying to control you. It is the investment that I put into the ego to run the show that is continuing to run the show because it's been put into place. And as I begin to relinquish the ego and choose for the Holy Spirit, I now feed the answer for the Holy Spirit instead of feeding the continuation of the ego, and it will slowly fizzle out. Kind of like if you stop putting gas in the ego car, eventually it'll keep running, but eventually it will run out of gas, especially if you're putting the gas in the Holy Spirit side. All right. This leads to fear because it contradicts what you perceive, and so you feel attacked. So what that means is if I've asked the wrong question or I've answered my own question without allowing the ego to be in place, it creates confusion, which will cause fear. And then, of course, I'll feel like I'm being attacked because anytime I have fear within me, I'm going to feel as though I'm being attacked by something because I've literally projected the confusion or the duality outside, and now I think it's coming to get me. And it really is, the messenger that I sent out. And there's that delightful section in the course where it talks about When you've chosen for the ego, it literally sends out these little feelers looking for any little piece of scrap that is going to bring to its master's feet bloody and gross and disgusting. And these aren't my words, these are the Course's word, because that's how much we want something to be the problem and not me. And we're so justified then to attack whatever shows up because it wasn't me.
It's about who we are.
Oh, big time.
That's
Huge,
We
huge.
don't
Yeah.
know who we are.
Yes.
So once we start to get a clue, or we start to use the idea of we are what God says we are,
Yes.
it starts to work in that direction.
Yes. And we talked a few minutes ago or a little while ago about the idea of the will of God. Well, guess what? The will of God is your will. Your will is love. His will is love. So anytime I walk away from or close my door to choosing for that, I'm literally saying, thank you, God, I got it under control. I'm taking care of this again. And he says, okay, have at it. I'm waiting here for you when you're ready. All right. And so therefore, after we feel attacked, we are then going to be angry because how dare something out there take my peace away? And what the Course would say is nothing out here ever, ever, ever takes your peace away. What takes your peace away is that you believe against love. Now, when we project it into the world, we play the game in the world, thinking that the world is the problem when the world is never the problem. The world or the problem is the choice for separation. As those two workbook lessons say, there's only one problem, one solution. The problem is you think you separated. The solution is you didn't. But then we conjure up all these other stories, all these other contortions that keep us stuck in this silliness that we play over and over. There are rules by which this will not happen. So he's giving us a little hope. If you really listen to what he's saying, there are ways of getting around the manipulations of the ego. But it does occur at first while you are learning how to hear. So in other words, there is a way to get around it, but initially we will start by doing it this way because we don't understand it clearly enough. And as I said before, the ego is extremely sneaky. When you ask for specifics, you are arrogantly telling him that you know and that you know the answer. And that's never going to get us to solve the problem on the level of I don't know. Anytime I'm in charge, I have a part of the deal, I'm involved. And, we did a whole section from trying to think of what the name of the book was. It was written by The Awakening from the Dream that Gloria and Ken wrote. And, he specifically wrote in that experience that when I think I'm going to help someone get out of the dark group, I'm in the dark group. That's a hard one to really grasp because I'm literally turning away from the light when I'm doing that. And, we all justifiably, as good little thinking we're spiritual people, think we can fix something else that's going on. And when we're doing that, we're actually falling into the trap of putting our energy into the thing that we say we don't want. And that's, again, that doesn't feel like the natural flow of being a good little person on planet Earth. Yet, if I'm not turning to the light, I'm turning to the darkness, period. So this is talking about turning to the light. All right, so paragraph 4. Throughout the day, at any time you think of it and have a quiet moment for reflection, tell yourself again the kind of day you want, the feelings you would have, the things you want to happen to you, and the things you would experience, and say, if I make no decisions by myself, this is the day that will be given me. All right, so throughout the day, at any time you think of it, and I think the beauty of this course is you have any moment of the day to work on it. You know, if you're meditating or going to church, I'm not saying any of those are bad, but they're for, 15 minutes, an hour or whatever. You have 24 hours a day to work on this course. Anytime you stop and go, wait, what's going on here? So you don't have to wait while you're sitting down with your legs crossed and you're oming or whatever. Yeah, there you go. So right. Any moment is an opportunity when you go, wait a minute, hold it. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole this time. And be very aware, we are seriously addicted to the rabbit hole. It's our comfort zone, you could say at this point, even though it's not our home. So throughout the day, at any time you think of it and have a quiet moment for reflection, tell yourself again the kind of day you want. And I'm going to stop there. And I just had the image of we should have a tattoo. I want only peace and forgiveness, because it's ridiculous how quickly we forget. Because we just get so wrapped up into the next thing on, on our schedule for the day. And we don't really put God first, even though we'd like to think that's where we are. All right, so tell yourself the kind of day you want, the feelings you would have, the things you want to happen to you, and the things you would experience. Now, even with those, this makes it sound like, okay, I want, the new car, the beautiful woman, or the handsome fellow, or, and I want to feel good, and I want this, that, and the other. It really means I want peace and forgiveness above everything else.
It's not lollipops and roses.
No. And then say, if I make no decisions by myself, this is the day that will be given me. And I started out the class with that beautiful quote that says, oh, my brothers, if you only knew the peace that would envelop you and hold you safe and pure and lovely in the mind of God, you would but rush to meet him where his altar is. And, literally, if I'm not doing that, I'm literally saying, I would rather have it my way. I would rather be in control. I've got it covered. See you later, God. And as I'm saying those words, this is in no way intended as a reminder to be judgmental toward yourself. It's simply as a reminder, oh, maybe I don't want to go that way again. Maybe I want to keep bringing it back to, being on a tightrope. And if I start to lose my balance here, I just line up. If I go too far this way, line up. Too far this way, line up. And that's all. I don't have to go, oh my gosh, I should have done it sooner. Why didn't I do it sooner? What's wrong with me? And we fall off the tightrope, and then we have to pull ourselves back up and start over again. It's simply much like I guess it's the black box in an airplane, where it's constantly trying to even the plane out so it stays smooth, but it's constantly going back and forth and back and forth. And that's what we're doing as well. And as we progress further along in our journey, the back and forth won't take place quite as much, because we won't won't falter quite as frequently. All right, so let's see. Again, if I make no decisions by myself, this is the day that will be given me. And once again, he's reminding us that it is me making my decisions based on what I think I know that are keeping me from aligning to his decision. And as long as I'm in charge, God is not in charge. And with this little chart, either God's on the throne or I'm on the throne. There is no other choice. There's only one throne, two seeming choices. This one, of course, will bring the guilt, sin, and fear, separation, differences, and so on. And this one will realign me to not only God's will, but my will, because all of God's will is mine, except for the fact that he's the created and we are creator and created. And as long as I don't care about that anymore, I'll be more willing to allow him to be in charge. And that means I cannot be in charge any longer. And look at how I don't want to do that. And I have so many good excuses for it as well, because, you know, I know and he doesn't, and I better take care of this. And once again, we have set up our world in such a way. I mean, think about it. As a little child, you're taught, you know, you're going to grow up and make your own decisions and you're going to do this and that and whatnot. So we literally were born into a world that was set up in a way where I not only should be in charge, I'm responsible for being in charge, and to be a good, mature adult on planet Earth, I need to be in charge. And then this comes along and says, nah, maybe not so. And we go, what? Huh? Yeah. All right, so I will just finish these next two lines and then we will move on. These two procedures, practice well, will serve to let you be directed without fear, for opposition will not first arise and then become a problem in itself. So again, this idea, ask him and let him take control. Don't make the choice and then ask him if it's okay. Because as long as you're doing that, there's a cute little place in the course, I'm not sure where it is off the top of my head, where it says we're like little mice yelling at the universe, telling the universe that we're hot stuff. And as long as we think we're hot stuff, we're going to be the ones running the show, and we are always going to be in lack of peace or forgiveness, because I'm literally perpetuating the separated state and I'm not allowing another choice to come forth. So I'm in charge, all is good. I got it under control. God, you're out of here. And then watch what happens next. And if you're not too happy with that anymore, there's another way. All right. Oh, and remember that Jesus is not talking about form. He is talking about the mind, the choice between the ego mind and the choice of the Holy Spirit mind. And we're so acclimated to form that we usually want to see results in form and not trust that if I've asked, something has shifted within my awareness. Whew, that was a lot. All right, with that, we will end the class and say our prayer. So everybody take a nice big deep breath and let it all go. Forgive us our illusions, Father, and help us to accept our true relationship with you, in which there are no illusions and where none can ever enter. Our holiness is yours. What can there be in us that needs forgiveness when yours is perfect? The sleep of forgetfulness is only remember your forgiveness and your love. Let us not wander into temptation, for the temptation of the Son of God is not your will. And let us receive only what you have given, and accept but this into the minds that you've created and which you love. Amen. And remember, as you're practicing this throughout the day, become aware how many moments of the day do I forget to do this? And just smile at you and say, oh, that's what someone who's separated from love would do. Don't judge it, don't attack it, but do become aware of it. Because the more we can do that, the quicker we'll come to that moment where we go, had enough of that, let's do this differently.
I feel like it alludes to how you can repair it in the moment. You can go to the reparational part and repair it.
You don't have to wait till tomorrow, right?
Yes,
Yep,
go on.
right.
More.
Yep,
Just the asking.
yep. All right.
Really want